congratulations to all of you, and something happened. And a big congratulations on this International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So this topic is close to my heart, and it's no secret that Sweden has a feminist foreign policy. So this is what we work with. And I will talk about a few things. I have 5 minutes, but I would like to say a few words about COVID and the efforts to tackle COVID, and how it looks around the world when it comes to STEM. And if there is a correlation between gender equality and women in STEM. And perhaps I will not offer any solutions today. Actually, I might only raise some questions. So let's see. So, as you know, Sweden is the first country in the world who have a feminist foreign policy. I will actually propose to my minister that we call it a STEMinist foreign policy. I love that. But today we still have a feminist foreign policy. So what is that? Well, that is about the 3 R's, and that is about rights, resources, and representation. And rights, obviously, that is about money, power, and autonomy. Representation, that is what you have here in Albania, a lot of women in government, that is representation. So you're doing good on the second R. And that is, of course, also about human rights, representation. And then it is about challenging the power and structures and sharing the power. And that is also what we talk about here today. So as many know, because we have been living through the pandemic, women have made an enormous contribution globally to tackle COVID-19. And women make up 70% of the world's health workers and the first responders, which put them at the heart of the COVID response. But they are very often underrepresented in actually making the decisions. So they are there to help, but they don't make the decisions. But also last year has clearly shown importance of women in science. Outbreak of COVID-19 has demonstrated the important role of women researchers in different stages to fight the COVID-19, from advancing the knowledge on the virus to develop techniques for testing, and finally to create the vaccine against the virus. But at the same time, the COVID had a significant negative impact on women, on scientists, particularly those at an early stage of their career, contributing to the widening already existing gap in science and revealing the gender disparities in the scientific systems. And this needs to be addressed by policies and decision makers. So let me take you just on a global journey, because I think that it's quite interesting when you look into the figures on a global level. And you know, we have a quite low level of women in STEM in Sweden, regardless of that we are a quite equal society. But let's take a look globally. So globally, we have around 30% women in STEM working as researchers. In Sweden, we have 40% choosing STEM for university. But the highest number of women in STEM we find in Asia, actually in Central Asia and in the Middle East. In Iran, the number is almost 70%. In Myanmar is number 2, and number 3 is Uzbekistan, and they have 60% of women in STEM. So what we can see is a correlation between a quite low level of human rights and a high level of women in STEM. And when you have a high level of gender equality and democracy, you get a low level of women in STEM. I think this is very interesting. And perhaps STEM is an area that is accepted for women in a very oppressive society. Perhaps you don't have the same kind of choices that you would have if you live in a fully democratic society. So perhaps STEM is the only choice that you can make. I don't know, it's questions to you, but I'm getting the figures from research. We have some researchers from University of Missouri who have been doing a lot of research around this. And they concluded that gender equality keeps women away from science. They called this phenomena the paradox of gender equality. I don't know if I would agree and say that gender equality keeps women away from science. That is a little bit perhaps to stretch it, but still the figures are there. But what they do is that they address the phenomenon that more women have achieved gender equality in a society, and the less they choose science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Albania is actually the only country where you have a quite high gender indicator in the society, also a high number of women in STEM. Why? I'm happy if you tell me. Perhaps it's the communist past, because in post-communist countries, you also have a high number of women in STEM. You know this, I guess. Another study commissioned by Plan International in Norway suggests that this has to do with financial security. So when you have a lower financial security, like in the Middle East, in other middle-income countries, the girls are encouraged to study and work in STEM, since it's easy to get jobs, and then you can sort of secure your future. These answers goes for Morocco and Algeria, where you have around 50% graduating from STEM. So let me say a few words about Sweden and how come we have a low representation in STEM, despite that Sweden is a country of innovations and gender equality. Well, this study from Norway suggests that in countries like Sweden and other Scandinavian countries with a high financial security, being a rich country, the choices of future, they are more free, and perhaps you have other barriers that are created that actually hamper and hinder women for choosing STEM. Perhaps you have gender stereotypes of what girls can do or cannot do, and perhaps it is the lack of encouragement from parents. I'm not sure, but perhaps. Perhaps it's a poorly designed curriculum, low self-confidence. I don't know, but this is what the researchers from Norway suggest. I'm not sure I agree with them, but we have the figures. So I would like to end to say a few words about the pandemic and the social and economic impact that the pandemic had on women. And because of course women were the first one to stay home and take care of the children and other unpaid labor that women had to do during the COVID and when they were staying home. So this of course includes women scientists. I think we need to work harder on how in Sweden and Albania, how to create equality in the workplace, how to support women in doing careers, how to address family and social barriers, such as unpaid care work, and how to actually challenge the norms about the parental leave. In Albania in 2019, only 745 fathers took parental leave, as is actually foreseen in the Albanian labor code. So a lot of men, fathers, have the right to stay at home with their children, but they don't use it. So in Sweden, fathers do stay home longer and longer. It's not 50-50, but it's more and more time that Swedish fathers are making use of. And the correlation is the higher education a man has, the more he's likely to stay at home. So low education, don't stay at home. Extremely rich men don't stay at home, but the educated middle class, they stay at home with their children. So all of this is extremely important because this also has an impact on women's ability to work. So a big congratulations on STEM Day, and let's keep up the fight for equality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. And thank you for, let's say, explaining at the beginning the rationale behind this, this meeting. As you probably have read the invitation, our concept note on the meeting is that it's not only to celebrate women in STEM, but it's to recognize their tremendous effort, as we'll see from our speakers in Albania and all over the world, that they have committed to fighting this pandemic. And they have done so successfully, I should add. But at the same time, gender equality during the pandemic in all fields has decreased, and especially in STEM, which was already very, very fragile and not necessarily tackled at the level as other fields have been. Thank you for all your introduction. And just one small point regarding the situation in Albania. Unfortunately, at least to our knowledge, there's a little, very, very, very little body of research on why and how girls engage in STEM and what are the opportunities for them and what should be done. And this is also one of the, let's say, the aims of our network. We want to increase and we want to contribute to this extension of the body of research because, let's say, in our perception, not being biased of being, let's say, STEMinist or being with STEMinist by profession, let's say, this is something that we should seriously work on. And now the floor goes to the ambassador of the Kingdom of Netherlands in Albania, His Excellency Reinout Vos. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for inviting it's of course a bit difficult position. I'm coming after Elsa, my Swedish colleague, because she represents a feminist government. I do not, unfortunately. We are learning in the Netherlands. So the new Dutch government has 50-50 men, women, which is already a revolution in my country. The next step will be that we will also be a STEM-friendly country, like Sweden. We still have a problem, and indeed what the causes are, nobody knows exactly. Whether it's role models, I'll come back to that. But indeed, the girls and women are underrepresented in the STEM world. And indeed, as Elsa pointed out, we should learn from the former communist countries where the situation is much better, and Albania is one of the wonderful examples. So we are actually here to learn from you. Then what, as being the only male here, what to tell you and squeeze between the ambassador of Sweden and your wonderful own Ornella Ademi in Amsterdam, who will speak after me. I decided Aida prepared some speaking notes for me, but I decided to call my own daughters. They are all three grown up, 2 live in the Netherlands and 1 in Norway. One of them being STEM, by the way, so I'm very proud of that. And I asked them, what shall I tell them? And then I provoked them with the question, do you know any examples of women who are actually successful in STEM? So my WhatsApp yesterday night was flooded with names. And I got the strict instructions from my 3 daughters to only read to you those names and to cheer for them. So cheer for Radia Perelman, the woman who designed a crucial algorithm for internet. You. Susan Kerr, the woman who designed many of the icons on our screen, like the waste bin, the scissor, formatting, paintbrush, etc. Cheer. And now we come to COVID, of course, because indeed COVID was a challenge for women worldwide, but COVID was, as Elsa pointed out, also an opportunity for those women who are good in STEM. Dame Sarah Gilbert, leading scientist in Oxford for the development of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which rescued so many lives. Cheer. What about Özlem Türeci, leading scientist for the Pfizer vaccine? Cheer. Katalin Karikó, one of the two scientists who managed to make the major breakthrough for the DNA technology for Moderna and Pfizer. Cheer for her. And then a few names not in COVID. Ada Lovelace, who invented the first algorithm, mind you, for computers ever. Yes. And lastly, here's the final, and I think it's a wonderful one. Sister, mind you, Sister Mary Keller of the Sisters of Charity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the second person on earth who received a PhD in computer science. So this is a wonderful list of women in STEM, and I think they should be the role models for all of us, whether we are in COVID crisis or not, because the simple truth is the world needs all capacities of men and women, and it is, apart from the human rights issue, it is a serious waste of talent to ignore half of our brains, actually. And so that is so wonderful that we are here assembled today on the International Day of Girls and Women in STEM. In science, not in management or technology or engineering or, okay. Because we really have to continue our journey and our struggle for enabling women and girls. And as I said, in Sweden, in the Netherlands, country which consider themselves at least very well developed, it's still a challenge. Why don't we teach our young girls mathematics, engineering? Why is it a self-sustaining system, actually? This is basically the challenge in my country. Probably, do we underpay our elementary school teachers? And that's the reason why too few men, actually, to put it that way, choose for that profession. And again, you get in the role model system, but you know much more about that. I can see that. So I'll leave the floor to those who know really, who are the real experts. So looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. And indeed, your daughters are truly STEM activists, I would say, because of the name that suggested you. I learned about Ada Lovelace 14 years ago when I was finishing university, and she wasn't very well known. And for the past 3 years, we've been organizing on the 13th of October, on the third Tuesday of October, which is International Ada Lovelace Day, an activity, yes, to promote Albanian women in STEM. And for the past 2 years, we've been organizing editathons to enrich Wikipedia with profiles of Albanian women in STEM living in Albania, both in English and Albanian. As so to, let's say, to say to the world that there are women in STEM in Albania, and you can find them on Wikipedia, and when you Google them, they come up to your search, from your search engine. And it's true that the issue is representation, and it's representation all over the world. And at the same time, your comment on why don't we teach our daughters, but also children, being boys or girls, STEM from the very beginning. STEM is very important, not necessarily to get into a STEM career, but it's very important for the development of cognitive skills. It's a life skill that children and everyone, eventually when they grow up, need to have in spite of the career that they choose. And going back to the Netherlands now, to Amsterdam, we have Ornella Ademi. She's joining us over Zoom. Ornella, both Ornellas actually, we had them with us last year as well for the launch of the network, and it's a pleasure to have them again this year as speakers. Ornella is a change manager for clinical trials at the European Medical Agency, but until recently, she was quite involved in COVID and handling the pandemic. Ornella, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Orkidea. Thank you very much, all of you, dear honored guests, and Orkidea and Bjarjana. Congratulations on organizing yet an important event, and thank you for inviting me to this amazing gathering with all these wonderful men and women. So COVID-19 is the time to recognize women and the contributions in research and innovation. We know that women make up almost 70% of the healthcare workforce, exposing them to a greater risk of infection with COVID-19. At the same time, women are also shouldering much of the burden at home, given school and childcare facility closures and long-standing gender inequalities in unpaid work. So globally, we know that only 33% of researchers are women, and they are awarded less research funding than men and are less likely to be promoted. However, in Europe, in the fight against COVID-19, women have played a crucial role. STEM women were entrusted and recognized in key positions in this fight to address against COVID-19. Here we can mention the EMA Executive Director, Imer Cook, which is a pharmacist, Stelia Kyriakides, the Commissioner of Health and Food, which is a physician, Ursula von der Leyen, a physician and president of the European Commission, becoming the first woman in such role, and also the first vaccine against COVID-19 was developed in collaboration of the Turkish couple, and therefore here I would like to highlight the great Ozan Tureci. So I was raised in Norway, and while I was in Norway, I have been working in a Norwegian environment, and the focus there was on facilitating the choice of women to work in STEM areas by giving them parental leave opportunities, toning down the old boys club concept, lowering gender payment gaps, etc. And here in the Netherlands, a huge amount of work in the process of fighting COVID-19 at EMA was led and facilitated by a group of women representatives. So the European Medicine Agency played a key role in the fight against pandemic of COVID-19 by adapting its processes and policies in order to rapidly respond to the need for treatment and vaccines in the prevention of COVID-19. EMA established a dedicated task force to deal with the scientific, regulatory, and operational changes created by COVID-19. I myself had the honor and was a lead secretary in one of the EMA committees contributing in the fight against COVID-19 by providing scientific advice and opinion on approval of medicine. And the committee's work to address COVID-19 scientific issues was led by the chair of the committee, myself, a lead secretariat, and other secretarial staff, which, by the way, all of us were women. We always used to say girl power before starting the meetings. So through its scientific committees, EMA have provided scientific approval of all treatments and vaccines against COVID-19 in Europe. The scientific committees and its working parties contributed to the development of medicines and medicine regulations. Committees also contained of representatives of all EU member states, which conducted the initial assessment of marketing authorization applications and providing scientific advice to companies researching and developing new medicines. So what the committees did, they prepare scientific guidelines, regulatory guidelines, and help the pharmaceutical companies to prepare marketing authorizations for COVID-19 medicines. They also cooperated with international partners to harmonize regulatory requirements for these applications. So the committee assessments were all based on comprehensive scientific evaluation of data that determined whether the COVID medicines met the necessary quality, safety, and efficacy requirements. And a lot of this work was done by STEM women. In addition, there was another committee leading the work of adverse events, side effects for COVID-19. And this was also led by a STEM woman, which it was a Dutch woman. It is a Dutch woman still. So to see that the gender gap during the pandemic has increased, for me, it's unfortunate, and taking in consideration all the work that all these women have done to address the pandemic. Therefore, I think it is important to empower women, support women so they can succeed in scientific roles. There is a long road and the change can take time. But if we focus on it, we may shorten the road a little. As women, we are different than men and may perceive and have different views than men. However, our views and work matter, and when women and men work together as equal, this can lead to a sustainable solution for our world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very important what you mentioned at the beginning that accessing to research funds is lower among women scientists than compared to men. And that is very unfortunate because, let's say, their contribution cannot be given at full potential, but also, as far as I've read, there's, let's say, when working on samples, more men are part of the research research. And this means that more of a male point of view is included. We can fight biases all the time, but they do exist at the end of the day. So it's very important that policymakers, but also civil society and academia really work to address this thing. And this is also a structural issue. Oh, it works. Too loud. Okay. It's also a structural issue that we need to address all together. And thank you also for mentioning that change takes time. We see it on an everyday basis that change really everywhere takes time, but especially when it comes to gender issues and especially when it comes to STEM, which historically has been known as a male-dominated field. So nevertheless, thank you for the message, and we're quite, let's say, enthusiastic to continue this fight, and you also with us, and hopefully the rest of the people joining us today. And from Ornella in Netherlands, we're going to Gentiana, which is the Director of Communications at the Institute of Public Health, Gentiana Circo. She's been, let's say, our own woman in STEM fighting COVID here in Albania. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I don't know if the microphone is working. Okay. Hello, everybody. It is a great pleasure for me to be here in this special day. Let's say I work in the Institute of Public Health and I lead the Health Promotion Department. And one of our products is the calendar of health promotion. And from some years, we have put this date in our calendar. But in fact, this is the first time that we participate and we are part of this event. So I really appreciate your invitation and also all of women engagement in science. All of our speakers mentioned the role of women during this time, during pandemic situation, and also the successful stories globally, but I think maybe and nationally. As you may know also, the major part of workforce in health sector here in Albania is composed by women. And this affected, of course, very much their productivity, their work, and also their engagement in family, but also in their workplace. Even though, despite this situation, the number of women engaged in research, especially in public health research, which is my area, is very, very low in Albania. Unfortunately, I see this also in the Institute of Public Health. We have a lot of women working there, a lot of women that are hard workers, but few of them are involved in deep research, let's say, or scientific papers and other studies that we conduct oftenly, which means that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and this addressed need to start maybe since in early education in order to break the myth that science is only for men and it's not for women. We have just conducted now a study which is called I Share Survey, and which aims to see the impact of pandemic situation in our health, in the family structure, and especially in sexual and reproductive health. We are working for the results, and we hope that we will have some findings. But why I am mentioning that? It is important to invest more in research, and especially in issues related to the gender equality, especially in the science. We don't have data. We don't know which are the drivers for which we need to work more and to invest more in order to encourage women to be part of the science and part of the contribution in our society. Maybe another recommendation might be to the promotion of successful women that have good achievement here in Albania, and to be part of this network. I think that the network is a perfect way for promoting their role and their role in our society. So I would like to end with the sentence that Mr. Ambassador said. We all have need for both women and men in science. So let's be part of this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gentiana. I keep repeating that basically what you're saying is very in line with what we are doing on what we are trying to do with the network. Of course, as mentioned by you, we need more research, women researchers. So we need to invest more in women researchers. And as I mentioned before, more structural changes are needed. Therefore, considering you and the ambassadors and Ornella, because let's say the donors and institutions, let's say, should work more together in making this possible. Of course, working with academia. And in regard to the promotion of Albanian women in STEM, you are very right to say so. We have already started an initiative called STEMspresso, having small videos and podcasts with Albanian women in STEM, talking about their research, the challenges they face. And it's a very small part that we're trying to do with our, let's say, own resources and contributing to this thing. But it's very true that it needs more widespread efforts, and all actors should be coming together and engage in this field. It doesn't only contribute to showing good role models to new generations, but also helps a lot with representation. We have a very low representation of Albanian women in STEM in the country, which is the case, let's say, also all over the world. So this is something that really needs to be tackled. Thank you very much. And from Gentiana, we are moving on to Ornella Bardi, which is advisor to the Minister of Health, and also a gender equality enthusiast and expert, I would say.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Bleriana and Orchidea, for the invitation again this year. Last year was really interesting to talk and to see with different people in different sectors in Albania. Although I have been abroad for quite a long time, still getting to know the situation in Albania is work in progress. I am a researcher, but first and foremost, I am an engineer. And I've been doing research in the engineering field in collaboration with the medical field as well. So today I will talk more as me, Ornella, as a researcher, and what problems we face as women in science. I will talk about also what we are doing as the Marie Curie Alumni Association, as I was granted a Marie Curie fellowship as well, and what the Western Balkan chapter of the Marie Curie Alumni Association is doing. So just to talk about some numbers here, although the numbers are much higher than what we currently have in our website, due to, of course, GDPR and personal information, we cannot access everybody's all researchers' information. But what we currently have is that in Albania, we have 10 researchers who have received Marie Curie grants in our chapter. And the majority of them are actually working in engineering field. Females, for example, in Western Balkans are 11 that are studying engineering, and 7 are studying environmental sciences. Life sciences are 25, math is 1, physics are 3, and social sciences and economics are 15. And specifically, females in this regard are 2 for engineering, 3 for life sciences, 1 for physics. So we're quite high in this regard in STEM fields, and we're very happy for that. Although these numbers are, of course, not representative of all the researchers who have received these fellowships. But in general, in our chapter, we have more females than males, and our funding chair actually was a female from Montenegro, also a physicist, a STEMist as well, and Radenka Wiffen. And as her term finished, I am currently the chair of the Western Balkan chapter, again a STEMist, and a female as well. So in the Balkans, females are quite initiative takers, let's just say it this way. Also during COVID, we started one really good initiative to promote good scientific information about COVID and fight against misinformation and disinformation. And the initiative started by, again, a female scientist living abroad, but from the Western Balkan countries region, Ivana Popovic, and she is also a STEMist in life sciences. The information regarding COVID was not only scientific, but at the same time translated in different languages. I was part of the initiative as well, and we translated information in Albania, but also very easy to understand by the general public, because we all know that scientific concepts and information is not always easy to understand. Another really good initiative was also as part of the European Commission, Science is Wonderful. The Mediterranean area have their own initiative called MedNight EU. And in September, they launched an exhibition with Faces of Sciences with female scientists all over the region representing one country. I'm happy to say that I was one of them representing Albania. But with this, I have to say that female researchers need to be more active in social media as well, promoting themselves. Because sometimes we do our work and we see we have it as it's our job, but at the same time we have to promote it, because without promoting it, other people cannot learn about it. Regarding mental health in research, I really want to talk about this because it's a really big problem in early stage researchers, and it has been before COVID as well. A very important work was done by the Belgian researcher Katja Levecki. Sorry for the mispronunciation of her surname, but the main work and the main idea of the highlights of the paper that was published in 2018 were that 1 in 2 PhD students experienced psychological distress, and 1 in 3 are at risk of common psychiatric disorders, which is very high. The prevalence of mental health problems is higher in PhD students, early stage researchers, than in highly educated general population, highly educated employers, and highly educated students. And the main problems are related to work and organizational contexts, which include work-family interface, job demands, and job contracts, with women having more short-term contracts than males, supervisor leadership style, team decision-making cultures, perception of careers outside of academia. Usually careers outside of academia seem less important, not very prestigious. So they require a majority of the PhD holders to continue in academia, whereas we all know that the positions are even scarcer and scarcer every day. But with the pandemic, these problems were exacerbated even more with no funding, because majority of the funding was going to COVID-19. And of course, it was very important problem, but at the same time, other research was lacking funding because everything was closed and shut. Majority of the researchers could not, especially for those working in labs, that require different specimens or working with special machines. They could not do their work. So a lot of research were delayed, and even the funding sometimes would not be there after, because the contracts or the deadlines for certain funding, no time for research, because as every researcher was back at home working from home, also children were also studying from home, and the majority of caregiving, and not only for children, homeschooling, but also taking care of other ill family members, or the burden of the women. And so these problems led to less funding, less start of the new projects, less time for research, less publications, delayed publications. And I would say I was also one of them who experienced delayed publications. But hopefully in 2011, all my 5 publications were accepted, so yay. And so this, and also the situation where all the countries were led to this gender gap in science. But also it's important that females were also part of many initiatives regarding COVID, such as some of them we mentioned during the conversation, starting of the vaccines, also fighting misinformation, being part of understanding and explaining scientific research about COVID to general public. Although one of the studies in UK showed that it was 1 in 2.5 men invited to media, so media should work much harder to have this balance also in genders. But hopefully the situation will be much better soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ornella, and thank you for mentioning issues of science communication. I think that another thing that everyone that wants to support women in STEM should be also focused on increasing their capacities in communicating science and communicating their research. It's very important. Science communication per se is important, but especially among women, because the spaces are so small. So better communicating skills will mean reaching wider audiences. And thank you also for mentioning the media. The same is true also in Albania, although I should say that during the pandemic, many spokespersons from the Institute of Health, of Public Health, have been women. And let's say the message, it was good to see that there were so many experts at the Institute, and it was also very grateful for that, for all those working in for women in STEM. And I would like to move on to the other speaker, which is Marcela Dauti. She's a PhD and research associate at Uppsala University. Marcela, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Orkidea. Okay, I hope everyone can see the screen. Okay, well, this is going to be my take on women's science and COVID-19. Besides being a research affiliate at Uppsala University, I'm also an associate professor adjunct at the University of Tirana. So I will speak more as a part of the University of Tirana than Uppsala University, as I have been here recently in Tirana. So evidence has established that COVID-19 has amplified the problems that women scientists face, and I think this message is clear from our discussion today. But I also think that it is very important that now at the end of the second year of the pandemic, we have more discussions on what can be done really. You know, we have so many lessons, what can be done to turn these lessons into action plans for the scientific community. Several problems have been addressed today, and I think if we see the list of problems that women scientists face, you know, the picture is quite bleak, I'd say. Women mostly have temporary jobs or non-tenure jobs, which means that they are insecure. Their professional networks, especially compared with their male colleagues, are weaker. Unequal pay, especially for senior positions, is a big problem, a global problem for women in science. Sexism and discrimination, a big problem. Sexual harassment in the workplace, also a big problem. Again, a global problem that women scientists face, and it's a problem that is not typically discussed. Invisible work, women are more likely to do work that is not recognized and is not paid within universities and scientific institutions. Working hours are not flexible, and this is extremely important for mothers. They want to have flexible working hours, and for fathers as well. Lack of support for childcare is also a problem. Limited mentoring programs, and this is especially a problem for young scientists. Little access to research infrastructure and funding. It was mentioned in the discussion. A study that was conducted in the UK shows that young women have less access to research infrastructure and funding, especially when it comes to labs compared to their male colleagues. Little presence in the media. Studies show that journalists are more likely to invite men who are not experts than women who are experts in particular fields, a problem in Albania as well. Little influence in policymaking. Women are experts, but when it comes to sitting at the table and influencing decision making, we don't see them very often. So this is a picture from 2019. I was in Uppsala, and I read this news in this newspaper, the situation after the earthquake. The president meets professors and experts, and I got so excited, and I said to myself, finally, professors and experts are recognized. And then when I read the article and I saw the picture, I was totally disappointed. The group, as you can see, is very homogeneous. I guess it speaks for itself. Also, we see that women are underrepresented in leadership roles in the scientific community. I have here a couple of pictures from the Academy of Sciences Facebook account, a public account. The picture on your left is a recent picture from last month, displaying the head of the Academy of Sciences and the leading body of the Academy of Sciences. And again, the picture speaks for itself. The group is it's like a very homogeneous. It's not just gender that bothers me, but there are other things as well in terms of representation of age and ethnicity and so forth. So we have big problems. It was already mentioned, I don't want to be repetitive, that job insecurity has increased for women during the pandemic, especially because they have temporary jobs, more childcare responsibilities and household chores for women, which have affected their career. We haven't discussed a lot about mental health concerns, especially in Albania, isolation, depression, and so forth. Women have had less research time, especially if we compare them with men, and of course that it affects their career trajectory. Early studies showed that women were also less engaged in research concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't know if this has changed during the second year of the pandemic, but this is what happened at the beginning of the pandemic. Again, less visible in the media at the global level. Also less engaged in policy decisions concerning health. And again, I'm talking about decision making here, not just participating in the process of providing support. At the end, I have a couple of what I would say suggestions, or connecting it with the idea that we have these problems, global and local, but what can be done. So these are mostly suggestions for the University of Tirana that I think I know a bit better than other universities in Albania. So I think that it is time to start revising some internal policies and regulations. This is the time, and I think an open dialogue is needed to start making those changes. We know so little about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in Albania. It's so little, and I think it is important to have funding, even seed funding, to understand what's going on when it comes to the impact of the pandemic. mental health support for students and faculty members and staff. I think it is extremely important. We always say that health comes first, but also mental health is extremely important. And it has affected everyone during the pandemic. So universities should do something about it. Recruitment policies that support women in science are extremely important. And I think universities in Albania should start making some changes. But also I think recruitment policies that are based on merit, not personal connections, are extremely important. And recruitment that is based on personal connections, it happens sometimes. Also, I highlight here increasing the visibility of the barriers that women scientists face. One thing that concerns me is that we always talk about women's contribution. I think it's important, but it's in a way it's like we are justifying women's presence in the scientific community. And I think we need to talk more about barriers, because women face a lot of barriers, and if we don't talk about it, then they won't be addressed. And I think that the precondition is that women scientists build more solidarity with one another, because otherwise change is not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcela. It's always a pleasure to listen to your to you basically, and to your input. And it's very important. You kind of wrapped up the whole discussion that we've been having until now, and it's very important that you let's say mention the issues regarding revising internal policies and structures, funding on the impact of COVID, which is very important that we learn now from what we experienced to remedy the impact of the crisis, but also at the same time to prepare us to better face future crises, because I don't think this will be the last one that we're, as a world, let's say, will be facing. And of course, thank you for mentioning building more solidarity with one of another, especially when going up the hierarchy. There's always this quote that I like, is that women being at the top should send the elevator down for other women to get at the top. It's very, very important. And I would like now to go to our last speaker for the day. With very much pleasure, I give the floor to Edlira Papavangeli, which is Gender Equality Program Manager at UNDP in Albania.
Thank you, Orkidea. I hope you listen to me quite well.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to this very impressive workshop, and also giving the time to exchange thoughts and also encourage with good practices and inspiring models of women in STEM. And congratulations for your first birthday as a network of Albanian women in STEM. So it's a great day and a great achievement. And at the same time, very happy to be with you also on behalf of UNDP together in September with also other country offices in the Western Balkans. We could manage to establish the regional network of women in STEM, and the network of Albanian women in STEM was part of that network, and we look forward to do important interventions together. Today in my speech, actually, I wanted to focus on what we at UNDP had done to, in a way, push forward the gender equality agenda on one hand, but on the other hand, contribute in a modest way also in areas like gender-based violence and domestic violence as one of the most concerning phenomenon, also in the context of COVID-19. I will try to share my presentation here. I hope you see it. Okay, and in doing so, I would like to actually present you with the main areas of our interventions and approach. We are a feminist organization, Actually, in all the areas of our interventions in good governance, human rights, social inclusion, growth, and employment, especially with a focus on youth and climate change, we do have a very gender responsive approach and interventions gender mainstreamed. But there is a very important focus on our interventions regarding women victims of gender-based violence and domestic violence in Albania. And in such doing, we have actually approached it from the micro, meso, and macro approaches, focusing on empowering women, especially those coming from vulnerable communities. Here talking more about women victims of domestic violence and gender-based violence, Roma, Egyptians, and women with disabilities, but on the other hand, also capacitating local government units and other local institutions and civil society providers, as well as academia, to in a way respond to these needs, and at the same time, at a more macro level, support the government and line ministries to respond to those needs with adjusted policies and gender mainstreamed and gender responsive interventions. I would like to focus here on a very particular aspect of our work, is building an online platform with professionals coming from local government units on how to, in a way, register, trace, and monitor cases of domestic violence and gender-based violence in Albania. And I'm happy to say that the whole idea and also the concept behind this platform is created by a very gender parity team. So we have one woman and one man on board that already created this online data system. And at the same time, with a bigger team at the national level, but also with local government representation, we could manage to develop this online database system that registers, as I said, traces and monitors gender-based violence cases, which actually are already addressed by several local government members at municipal level, which are already called as coordinated referral mechanisms. Actually, the system is quite in respect of the privacy and confidentiality of the data that is entered in this platform, and has limited number of local and central employees, which are already trained on how to enter data, how to populate it in a systematic way, but not only that, but also how to respond to the needs of those cases that are already entered there through different support systems given by different local institutions. The platform actually generates different kind of reports on domestic violence victims, on the perpetrators, on the cases, and at the same time, services provided to the victims, and the level, especially the level of cooperation between different and relevant local bodies. The system at the same time, while recording and tracing each case, gives the professionals the benefit of well management of all these cases from an interdisciplinary perspective. Since, as I said, these cases are already dealt through coordinated referral mechanisms at municipal level, and it gives the professionals tools for measuring the effectiveness of this local institutional response and referral mechanism through the number of actors that are engaged, but also at the same time through the number of measures that are undertaken to manage each and every case. The system also serves to develop policies, but also measures that are informed by disaggregated and quality data in response to the rising needs of the gender-based violence, but also domestic violence victims. And this is not done solely by the ones that are entering the data, the professionals that are entering the data at municipal level, but at the same time in cooperation with service providers like civil society organizations and other development partners that have a keen focus on this. And last but not least, the platform already measures implementation on the progress of gender equality policies at the local government level, since this already reflects a lot of decisions that are taken by municipal councils on the rising needs of women and girls victims of domestic violence, but not only them, but also all DV victims that also are men and boys. What is been doing during the recent 4 or 5 years with the system, actually increasing capacities on using this this technology, this system, and at the same time mentoring and on-job training that has been offered to the local DD coordinators in 61 municipalities, but also members of the multidisciplinary technical groups on data collection and systematic use and population of the REVALP system, actually has been one of the aspects of our work that we thought we have already considered it as a very important aspect to increase the capacity, the digital capacities of professionals. And from our experience, the biggest number that have benefited from these capacity building activities and mentoring work has been women and girls, since many of the local coordinators at municipal level, the majority of them are women. This system also has improved the technical capacities of these professionals to tackle with the challenges of execution of the protection orders. We all know that I mean, there have been a lot of challenges on how to monitor protection orders given by the courts to protect the life and also provide security to the domestic violence victim or gender-based violence victim. So this was already a novelty that was already introduced in the REVALP system on how to track the execution of these protection orders through data entering by different members, including court system. During the pandemic year, especially and onward, we have been using a lot of different digital communication platforms like Zoom, TeamViewer, etc., to help the professionals at all municipalities with this online training, the mentoring, but also coaching, on-job coaching to, in a way, be with them in a team to overcome difficulties in how to systematically use this system with a purpose on how to already give a better overview of the situation and at the same time take relevant measures and interventions in response. We are happy to see that these updated reports in the system have assisted the professionals and also decision makers at local level to have better decision-making processes and also involve more members of the coordinated referral mechanisms in a better management of domestic violence cases at local level. What are the figures? What can we say about the figures so far?
Yes, sorry, just a quick reminder, we're running very, very late and we have a couple of people in the room and online who want to say something.
Right.
Sorry,
Well,
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's not easy to be the last, actually, in the list of the speakers. So I'm trying to give you the figures of at least the last 4 years. You'll see that the increasing number of recorded cases in the system at the same time of updates show that the professionals have been really increasing in their digital skills in using this platform and also responding in a more effective way to each case of domestic violence at local level. So basically this is what I wanted to share with you through this initiative and intervention. And I think that a lot more is needed, as many of the speakers today highlighted, that to push forward the gender equality agenda in the country actually involves different sectors and definitely involves women and men equally to, in a way, boost not only the gender equality agenda, but at the same time to boost the influential role of women in leadership and managerial skills. Thank you, and I'm sure that if there are questions regarding this particular platform, I'll be happy to handle.
Thank you very much, Eda, and thank you very much for bringing to our attention issues of gender-based violence. Again, I would like to go to what I was saying in the beginning. The social and economic empowerment is very important, that it's very important when we also talk about gender-based violence. And congratulations with what you are doing with the platform. And I'd like to again mention that while we work with gender equality in monitoring and everything else that you are doing, it's very important also to work with visibility. And as Madam Ambassador mentioned at the beginning, with representation, with empowering figures of women to be more vocal, to be more present. And we have a question online and one in the room. So the floor goes to Edessa.
Hi, my name is Edessa. I'm 21 years old and I'm studying physics in my last year of bachelor studies. So I am a STEMinist as well. I actually didn't know I was going to speak, so I'll just say some things about myself. I've wanted to study physics since I was a little girl, and thankfully my parents have always been supportive of that. Physics is very underrated here in Albania, and most people, when they find out that I'm studying physics, they seem kind of disappointed. I don't know why, but I've never been prouder of studying physics until now. And this is my first time being in a room full of successful people and, you know, ambassadors, so I'm kind of excited. When I started studying physics, I was very happy, but I knew that something was missing. And that's when I started volunteering, and that's how I met Bleriana in a meeting about volunteering in the region. And she told me to come here, so I'm very thankful. And that's it. Oh, I'm also honored to be studying here in Tirana because there are amazing women professors at my university. One of them, Mimosa Hafizi, you probably know her. And recently, the National Institute of Physics has been founded, and she is an executive producer or something. I'm not sure, director. And they had their first conference yesterday and today. So that's a very big accomplishment for physics in Albania. Well, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Edessa, and thank you for your very raw feedback. And I'm very happy to see that you're vocal when saying never been prouder of the field that you study. And it's a beautiful and amazing field. So I feel a little bit sorry that, let's say, my knowledge of physics has faded away, but whenever I see something, yes.
A very quick reaction. Because my father was a physicist. I'm very proud of it. He thought that becoming a diplomat was not the thing to do, actually. He thought I should be a scientist. And I still remember the story when he was in school very long ago. He's no longer lives. He wrote an essay on the beauty of mathematics. And then his teacher said, he gave him a very bad mark because mathematics cannot be beautiful. And he, for the rest of his life, he was angry that he got that bad mark because he was so convinced that mathematics is beautiful. So be proud of your discipline.
Thank you. We have to agree. I agree with you, Mr. Ambassador, but you're a diplomat and you have this huge power of being an ambassador for STEM. So even though you didn't study STEM or science,
that's my consolation,
absolutely. I would like to give the floor to Bleriana.
No, I just had a small input when I first met Edessa, we were talking about volunteering, as she mentioned.
And the first sentence she said, and then I knew she was the right person for our network. We were looking for an intern for some time now. And so immediately on the spot during the coffee break, I offered her the position and she accepted. So that's why she's here as well today. And we are very happy. This is at the end why we're doing it, to support young girls and hopefully make a small contribution in their career path in academia and in business. Thanks.
Thank you, Bleriana.
If I could say something.
Yes, please.
So yesterday, it's quite recent. One of my colleagues and friends, she's also a Marie Curie fellow. She is a physicist and she's working at CERN. And they recently reached the level of the hotness of the sun in CERN. And you know, you can work there. It's not impossible.
We're crossing fingers for you, although I'll be very sad, but you will be keep, interning for the network even when you're in CERN. And thank you very much for let's say, your eagerness to be part of this. And Diana said that we're doing it for the young generations. And this all started when my niece was born 4 years ago. And everyone has children and has nieces and nephews, let's say. So this is a very raw, I would say, initiative. And we also have another question online from someone wants the floor, Albana Laknori, the Secretary General of Tirana Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I don't know whether she's still online and would like to.
Still on, I'm on.
Okay, great.
Do you hear me?
The floor is yours.
Do you hear me? Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm emotional.
Yes, now.
Okay, I'm emotional. I'm glad to be part of this wonderful conference. It's right on time, and I think for Albania it's hope. I'm not talking about this conference only as woman, but I'm talking about as intellectual property expert who deal every day with inventors, with businesses. And I want to announce two wonderful inventors, which are new generations of inventors working outside Albania, but applying for patent in European Patent Office. There is Serena Leka, wonderful girl living in Denmark, and there is Verina Jabia, another lady who is living in Italy, but has 2 patents, approved patents. And this is a wonderful news and good for Albanian women. Another comment that I would make is, in Albania, it's only 0.35% of GDP from government's budget to be used for R&D and innovation. That it's not a good sign, I think. And another thing, we have no data how private sector is financing the R&D. And I think the companies and businesses have possibilities to invest on R&D. And thank you again. I have a nice prosecution of day.
Thank you very, very much. I'm very happy for your short intervention. Throughout this discussion, and now I kind of what I was reminded about is that we didn't mention the private sector, but the same issues are present at the private sector as well. And this is a note for next time, a mental note. We need someone from the industry as well, because the network, let's say, is working with both industry, academia, and policy. And I don't know whether someone here would like to add or to ask something last, or someone from the panel would like to add something last. I would like to. Yes, Arion. And Arion is one of the first members of the network as well. And he's, let's say, covering the field of expanding the network among men.
Yes, thank you very much, Their Excellencies. Thank you very much for giving us the honor to be here and the network itself. Well, I may recall myself from different occasions, well, starting from very early ages, and I guess we all are feminists somehow. Since that even when we're babies and we fall down and we start crying, we ask for our mommy to be there. So even to early steps. And going ahead and somehow connecting the dots here, I remember I was trying to promote the STEM itself into high schools. And I was there trying to speak to all pupils around. They're mainly the the males and the guys were the one asking more questions. And then I was saying, okay, please, now we have to focus now on the girls. And they were so shocked. Why us? Why not you? And I starting then counting several names, probably not from all famous females and girls and women science around and have make their story about STEM, but my actually real examples and practices I had experiences. I have working more than 20 years now in IT department and development, and mainly even though the girls were in smaller number, they actually making their note there. They were making actually the most of the impact there. When there was a difficult project, every time they say, okay, yes, you lady, you have to do that. And all the times. And that wasn't an occasion, or that wasn't just a random thing, but indeed they were quite accurate, so focused, and they were finishing. It was so responsible on that. And definitely they have such much imagination. And I have having those so many experience on that. When my colleague Orkidea asked me about joining, I think their network on women in STEM, I said, yes, why not? So I was the right opportunity. And actually I'm being guilty as well here for inviting my colleagues men here as well. Well, they didn't know about, first of all, and they didn't know what it means to be here. Because people think that, okay, it's women in STEM, definitely it's women there. So it's not about guys and on men's. But I guess this is very important. And I think something to one of my remarks in here is that this kind of networks have to join and create as much collaboration with so many other networks. So there is women in SMEs, in entrepreneurs. There is, let's say, STEMs in the different societies or on ITs in Albania. And if they all join together, this actually will provide and give more voice to your cause. And I'm here to support that. I'm quite proud on that. Since that I'm working, and I'm as well Jean Monnet coordinator in Albania, and my main scope on this project, as it is EU project, is to try to be an ambassador in Albania for digital agenda of EU for 2013. And four pillars, main pillars of this agenda of EU agenda of 2030, actually, one of them is skills. And when it's going more details on skills, we see that gender equality on STEM and let's say IT in generally, it's one of the key points. And I'm trying to promote that kind of culture of EU, and definitely network here is doing pretty well. And all experience I'm gathering, I guess, around pushing and trying to create as much awareness as possible, I think it's creating somehow its own fruits. Trying to close in here to the ambassador, as mentioned before. So why Albania? It's doing great. I guess because we used to have, but trying to keep up on that, a very good basis on mathematics in early ages. And when they finish the bachelor, the high schools, and want to go to bachelor, they have limited choices. So either they go to hard or industrial engineering, which probably that's not too much about women or girls actually. And the choices left actually are it's STEM, it's IT, it's development. And I think as well, informatics and economics, let's say faculty, as well, this have created somehow this kind of interest from girls, because it connects economics and IT together. And this looks like more into more feminist somehow. So I'm trying to say congratulations and thank you very much for the opportunity. Excellencies.
Thank you very much, Arion. Indeed, when you were talking to your girl colleagues, I remember when I was back in university, and this was it was 15 years ago or 17 years ago when I started studying, and I was studying business informatics, but it was this feeling that, okay, what are you studying? Going, of course, to move towards business. But I have friends from my class who are excellent business intelligence specialists, and they're working now in NATO all over in enterprise in Albania. So I'm very happy to see that, let's say, the language of professors is changing. There might be biases, but they're trying to address them. And the way you talk to new generations, especially for the males, is very, very important, because you either can make it or break it, their let's say future ideas or dreams. I would like to thank everyone. I was very excited to speak to all of you, and I hope I haven't shown that excitement too much with a lot of mistakes. And I would like to end with a couple of notes from our discussion. I would hope to see the ambassadors being ambassadors of STEM, of women in STEM in Albania. So whenever you talk to your institutional counterpart or to your colleagues in other agencies, just bring to their attention the issue of women in STEM. We need more women in STEM to be more represented, to be higher in careers, to be better paid, so we can address issues of social and economic impact. Of course, we need more research, and this goes to both academia and industry. And it was a pleasure to get to know Albana from the Chamber of Commerce, because we're going to get in touch with her and see and explore these fields. But more research is necessary. Also more funding. And this goes again back to the ambassadors, but also luckily to our two institutional representatives here. Also, the government needs to be proactive into that. It has been a history of, in Albania, the civil society or academia waits for funds from donors, but we need to own to that. And Albana rightfully mentioned so that the amount of funds from the GDP that goes to R&D is non-existent, basically. So more needs to be invested into that. And more visibility for women in STEM. Women per se need to be more active. So just get in touch with us. We need a lot of suggestions for our STEM Espresso series. We need new ideas, and we're very open to that. We're increasing in numbers. We're almost 100 during this first year, but not a lot of active members. So this is the goal for next year. Thank you very much. And I would like to welcome all of you to a group picture. I was told so. And thank you to everyone who participated online. It's my first time in this sort of format, so I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and thank you for the great comments on the chat.
Thank you all. Thank you.